Hi there, I'm Miss Labiuk, and I am bringing you today the Boxcar Librarian by Brianna Labuske. I'm new to the FRC this year, and I'm teaching grade 9 math and science, and I love this book for a couple reasons. One, it has riveting twists and turns. Just when you think the plot's going one way, zing, it goes someplace else and catches you by surprise. I also love that it's based on a true story. And I also love that it's based on three female heroines and what they've gone through at a time when they really had very few resources and very few opportunities. So it says, a thrilling Depression-era novel about a woman's quest to uncover mysteries surrounding a local librarian and the Boxcar Library, a converted mining train that brought books to isolated rural towns in Montana. The three women's stories dramatically converge in search to uncover what someone is so desperately trying to hide. What happened to Colette Durand? Inspired by the fascinating, true history of Missoula's Boxcar Library, the novel blends the story of the strong, courageous women who survived and thrived in the rough and rowdy West with that of the power of standing together to fight for workers' lives, and through it all shines the capacity of books to provide connection and light to those who need it most. I thought this was a great choice for I Love to Read Month, and especially because it's all about books. And so we are going to start with Millie's story. She's lucky to have a job at the Federal Writers Project, which is not the case for most anybody at that time. And the Federal Writers Project makes an American Guide series, a travel book, so to speak, called Introducing America to the Americans. And people write stories from each province, and they get shared with everybody around the states. So here we go. I hope you enjoyed as much as I do. Millie always liked working on Louisiana. It had been the state just next door to her own, and it was the one she'd never been to or ever thought of before. Curiosity had died in the years after the crash, when survival had been constantly front of mind. But like the spring in the secret garden, curiosity was in the air once more. There wasn't quite room for it yet, as Millie had thought just that morning about learning the name of her neighbor. It was slowly returning, though. And that was important. Millie was beginning to realize when someone was curious about the world, about both their neighbors and strangers who they shared a country with, it countered the hate that could brew from ignorance and fear. Also, it was simply fun to learn about so many different people with lives that were so different from her own. Millie had made friends with a maid in Massachusetts, a boxer in Chicago, a fisherman in New Orleans. As someone who had never had anyone other than family to care about, it was almost exhilarating. The town Millie had grown up hadn't had any children her age. Her cousins were too young to be companions. In Dallas, Millie had made a fuss about a too friendly supervisor and then had been ostracized for doing so. And in D.C., everyone was just too busy to socialize. Maybe it was a bit sad. Millie found connection in these pages that passed over her desk day in and day out, the ones telling stories of people who rode horses in rodeos and rode off waves on the coast of California, who skied mountain passes in Denver and performed acrobatics on the wings of airplanes in North Carolina. But it was more than she'd ever had before. If you look at a map, you will see that Louisiana resembles a boot with its frayed toe dipping into the Gulf of Mexico. Millie smiled. You couldn't remove a poet's heart from their body or their writing. She went to make a note in the margins and then cursed when the nib of her pen snapped. The FWP had to keep their supplies in a closet buried deep in the back of the theater to discourage casual visitors from getting light fingers. Millie wound her way through the dark hallways of the old auditorium, wrinkling her nose at the pungent mildew that grew stronger the deeper she went into the theater. When she got to the closet, she paused, hand on the knob. There was someone inside. She considered knocking, not wanting to startle whoever it was, but then she heard, "No!" It wasn't a calm rebuke or even an angry one. It was a plea laced with panic. Millie yanked the door open. All she could see was a man's broad back and the high heels and long legs. The man was gripping the woman's thigh tightly and had the other hand pushing her head into the wall. He shifted then, and Millie caught sight of his profile, recognizing him immediately. Foxworth Hastings, the son of a powerful senator who was trying to cut all the funding to the Federal Writers Project. There was talks that Foxwood would make a play for the White House one day. The woman's eyes were wide and wet, her mascara smeared on her cheeks. Millie thought about her boarding house, which wasn't perfect but gave her some place and some semblance of security. She thought about the money she sent back to Texas that meant all 6 of her cousins could eat that week. She thought about Phil, her friend, dressed in workman's clothes just in the hopes of gaining a few bucks that day. She thought about creamed eggs on toast and pickles for lunch and that tiny little bit of lipstick that she'd already chewed off on her way over. She thought of pink slips and job boards and what would happen if she did exactly what she wanted to do. Then she did it anyways. Millie curled her hand into a perfect fist, hauled her arm back, and let it fly directly into the face of a man who could unequivocally and completely ruin her life. Enjoy.
Hi everyone, I'm Miss Schwarz. You might remember me from the library. I'm here today to talk about the book The Nightingale by Kristin, and I have 2 helpers here with me. I have Bubbles and I have Griffin. So The Nightingale is a historical fiction novel that tells the story of 2 sisters in German-occupied France during World War II. Vianne is the older, dependable sister who struggles to survive the war and protect her children. Isabelle is the younger, headstrong, more spirited sister who joins the French resistance, taking on dangerous missions. This book is at times heartbreaking and tense, but it also speaks to resilience and hope. One of the reasons I enjoyed this book is because it talks about the often forgotten role of women in the war. There's a quote at the end of the book that summarizes this beautifully. Men tell stories. Women get on with it. For us, it was a shadow war. There were no parades for us when it was over, no medals or mentions in history books. We did what we had to do during the war, and when it was over, we picked up the pieces and started our lives over. The other reason I enjoyed this book is because it isn't about soldiers and battlefields. It's about ordinary citizens. My parents grew up in Europe during World War II, and I've heard firsthand accounts of my grandparents protecting their children, or neighbors and friends helping each other survive the war. I think The Nightingale captures how ordinary people struggled with the realities of the occupation, and it shows their unwavering spirit, strength, and sacrifice in the face of unspeakable evil. In today's political climate, as we see hate and intolerance grow, The Nightingale is a good reminder that ordinary people can do brave things and change the world around them. And I'm just going to read a passage from the book. It's actually the first page. I really like how they set up the book because it starts in the present, and then Vianne begins to reminisce and think about her memories from the war. If I have learned anything in this long life of mine, it is this. In love, we find out who we want to be. In war, we find out who we are. Today's young people want to know everything about everyone. They think talking about a problem will solve it. I come from a quieter generation. We understand the value of forgetting and the lure of reinvention. Lately, though, I find myself thinking about the war and my past and about the people I lost. Lost. It makes it sound as if I misplaced my loved ones. Perhaps I left them where they don't belong and then turned away, too confused to retrace my steps. They are not lost, nor are they in a better place. They are gone. As I approach the end of my years, I know that grief, like regret, settles into our DNA and remains forever a part of us. I have aged in the past months since my husband's death and my diagnosis. My skin has the crinkled appearance of wax paper that someone has tried to flatten and reuse. My eyes fail me often. In the darkness, when headlights flash, when rain falls, it is unnerving, the new unreliability in my vision. Perhaps that's why I find myself looking backward. The past has a clarity I can no longer see in the present. So that's the end of my book talk, and I hope that you will consider voting for the Nightingale for March Madness. Thanks.